Hello, I'm attorney Dan Marr from the Nashua, New Hampshire law firm of Hamblett Kerrigan. I've been practicing law in New Hampshire for approximately 36 years and in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for approximately 28 years. And in today's blog, I'm going to be talking about what happens when your ex, your former romantic partner, claims an interest in your real estate, the house that you lived in, even though they're not on the deed. So I'm going to be talking about that. And I'm going to be talking about that in the matter of somebody that is not married. If you're married, you have a divorce process, and there's a whole clear statute there. But it's less clear when somebody is not on the deed and they are still claiming an interest. There is a partition statute that allows people to divide up their legal and equitable interest in real estate in New Hampshire. And the traditional situation is when you have two people on a deed and they can't get along with each other and they won't reach an agreement as to one buying out the other or them both selling the property together, then there's the partition statute, and you can file in either probate court or the Superior Court, and you can go through that process, and the court will make a determination, either perhaps giving one of the parties an opportunity to buy out the other person, but if they don't meet it within that period of time, then they'll turn around and say that in the order they'll say that the property is to be sold with cooperation of the parties and picking of a broker and the like. So all of that is a process that is obviously clear when both parties are on the deed. But let's talk about the situation that does come across often when parties are in a relationship. Maybe one of the partners had a house before the sale. Maybe when they bought the property, one of them had bad credit, so they weren't put on the deed and the mortgage and the note, so that it was a reason for that for financial reasons. The relationship ends, and the person that's not on the deed makes a claim against you as the owner of the property, or the legal owner of the property that's on the deed. They make a claim of that. How do you deal with that process? I've dealt with that process on both sides of the situation. First and foremost, you have to deal with what is the likelihood that they're going to be able to claim the title. Just because they say, look, I've been paying on this property too, and I think I have an interest in this real estate, if they're still in the property, you might be looking for an eviction, and you can proceed forward in the circuit court in the district division of the area that you're in. So if you're in Nashua, it's here in the Ninth Circuit. If you're in other courts, it's in that circuit. But you file that. If the other party shows up and says, look, I think I have a legal real estate interest in the property, the court can make some determinations of, well, what's the basis for that? And should I say, no, I'm not going to grant this eviction, because you have to go to Superior Court or Probate Court to determine what your real estate interests are, and there's also a possibility of a requirement for a bond to be posted for the eviction. But that's a process where if somebody's just saying, look, I think I have an interest, maybe you go forward directly with an eviction. If you actually have money exchange, perhaps they provided a deposit, part of the deposit down on the property, they made some improvements on the property, and this is something that you want that the district court judge in the eviction may take seriously and move up to this Superior Court. Maybe you don't waste your time with going to the district court first, and I've had some of those situations where there's been enough substance there of their claim that I flushed that out. I was successful in flushing it out, but I flushed out and said they didn't have an interest in a partition action, rather than going to the eviction first and then dealing with the eviction, and then dealing with the partition action and coming back to the court for the eviction. So that makes a lot of sense if you're in a situation where somebody doesn't have their name on the deed and they've contributed perhaps to the deposit on the property, they've made some improvements on the property, or they paid for improvements on the property, they did something more than the general maintenance of the property. You have an argument there by the other side that you want to flush out, and I've dealt with that in these cases. If you're in a situation where your former romantic partner is saying, look, we had a mortgage on this property of $2,000, and I was paying $1,000 for this two-bedroom house that we were living in during this 10 years of relationship, and therefore I was contributing equally to the mortgage payments and the taxes and the homeowner's insurance. If it's $1,000 on a two-bedroom, I respond when I'm representing the person that's got the title holder. That's called rent. You had to have occupancy costs somewhere, and that in and of itself is not enough to make you an owner of the property to claim that you have some constructive trust or partnership interest in this real estate. You have to show that to the court equitably when your name's not on the title, and it's a tough one to deal with. So you have to have more than that, generally, in my experience, because certainly when I'm representing the title holder, the person that's actually name on the deed, I'm going to be stating that. If there's a situation, like I said, where they can show that the person, they had a discussion about the property, maybe they said that, look, this is our property, and I consider it as 50-50 if the relationship doesn't work out. Well, that type of agreement, and then the payments that are made consistent with that agreement, that can be evidence that the court can consider. A good portion of the deposit can be something that the court can consider. If there's a reason, by way of example, of credit issues as to why that one party isn't on the property when you purchase it together, that can be an issue. All of those issues are something that the court will deal with, and they're very fact intensive. And when I'm dealing with these cases, I have to deal with the actual facts and the specifics. It's not an easy green and red light on this. It is a mixed bag of the full facts, and I try those cases if I need to, if we can't settle a case, and then if we need to, we evict the person. If the person has moved out, you don't have the eviction issue. Also, what happens in some relationships, one party will make an allegation of domestic abuse to get the other person out. Maybe the person that's not on the title may make an allegation of domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is extremely serious, and if it's true that's you're going to be forced out. Ex parte domestic violence petitions sometimes happen and they're not accurate. The person has made it up. I'm not suggesting at all that there's a trend one way or another on those. I do know that sometimes domestic violence petitions are used as a weapon to get the other person out of the house and to get a one-up on the claim of the real estate interest in the house. I'm not suggesting how rare or not, because I don't have those such statistics, but I have dealt with those with false claims out there too. So in that situation, you have to deal with the domestic violence issue as well, and then also deal with the partition statute if you're dealing with this. So I'm Dan Marr. I've been dealing with this for, again, 36 years in New Hampshire, and this issue is focusing in on the New Hampshire real estate. I've also dealt with it in Massachusetts. You can contact me at 603-883-5501. That's 603-883-5501. And check out our blog, our website, nationallaw.com. And if you click onto my website, my bio, and then to the vlogs that I have, you can look at my weekly vlogs on a variety of legal topics. And I'm happy to help you if the opportunity arises. Again, Attorney Dan Marr at 603-883-5501, or check out our website, nationallaw, all one word, .com. Thank you.